Morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's start by taking a look at the day's headlines. Up, up and away again. South Korea launches its second satellite in as many days. The Chollian-2A will send crystal clear images of weather systems and the Earth's surface to South Korean researchers several times every hour. U.S. President Donald Trump says he wants a second summit with Kim Jong-un soon to ensure the North Korean leader makes good on the pledges he made at their first summit in June. Plus, bundle up, it's cold outside. The first winter chill of the season sweeps across South Korea. Cold weather warnings are issued in certain regions as the mercury plunges well below freezing. Our top story this morning, South Korea has launched another satellite into orbit, this time a stationary meteorological satellite. Seoul's Ministry of Science and ITC confirmed the launch took place at 5:40 a.m. Korea time from a space center in French Guiana. The Chollian-2A was on board the Arirang 5 rocket with a dual passenger launch. It included an Indian satellite. A signal has been received confirming the launch was a success. The Chollian-2A will send high-res pictures of weather front developments and the Earth's surface to local researchers every 10 minutes. The first wave of winter is making its presence known here in South Korea. It might be time to think about turning up the heat as most of the country woke up to sub-freezing lows, including here in Seoul. And this, unfortunately, is just the beginning. Forecasters say even colder weather is on the way as we head toward the weekend. Jae-in reports.
Icy winds are picking up speed, and the mercury is starting to plunge. The first cold wave warning of the winter season was issued overnight in most parts of South Korea, including Seoul and Incheon. This comes as a cold front moved in from the northwest, causing temperatures to tumble by up to 10 degrees Celsius. Seoul woke up to a morning low on Wednesday of -5 degrees Celsius. And it seems it won't get any milder as the week progresses, as biting Arctic winds will blow across the Korean peninsula on Friday. Weather experts say Seoul will hit -8 degrees on Friday and as low as -10 on Saturday.
Strong winds from the North Pole will bring even colder temperatures in the latter half of the week.
While the intensity of the cold snap will gradually soften from next week, experts are advising people in regions near the West Sea to prepare for a possible heavy snowfall. Jae-in, Arirang News.
One person was killed and 20 injured on Tuesday night when a hot water pipe near Ilsan's Baekseok metro station exploded. Around 2,800 households were also without hot water after the incident. Korea District Heating Corporation has just revealed the pipes are now operational again and water for house heating systems will soon resume. Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon called on the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy to identify the cause of the deadly incident and check for problems in the management system of the hot water pipes. He also asked the ministry to provide support for the family of the victim. U.S. President Donald Trump is said to want a second summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to ensure Kim makes good on the pledges he made at their first summit back in June. Speaking at a conference organized by the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday, Trump's national security advisor, Bolton, said the North has not lived up to those commitments yet. He said that's why President Trump believes the second summit is likely to be productive. Bolton added that if the North follows through on its promises, Trump, quote, will deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. President Trump has said he expects to meet Kim in January or February of next year in one of 3 unspecified locations. South Korean researchers are going to wrap up their inspections of North Korea's Western Gyeonggi rail line today and return home this afternoon. They have checked 400 kilometers of railway between the North Korean cities of Kaesong and Sinŭiju since last Friday. Another team, they're going to cross the border on Saturday for a survey of the North's eastern Donghae rail line. South Korean train cars used for the inspections will move to the city of Wonsan in the north, where they'll be linked up with the regime's locomotives and train cars. Regarding concerns over the security of resources like oil, Seoul emphasized the two Koreas are conducting the project on a foundation of trust. The joint survey is expected to be done by December 17th. Now, President Moon Jae-in is likely getting over some serious jet lag after returning to Seoul late Tuesday from an 8-day trip that literally took him around the world. The South Korean leader once again reaffirmed there's still a chance North Korean leader Kim Jong-un might visit Seoul before the end of the month, but stressed the regime's denuclearization is the ultimate goal of these negotiations. Our presidential office correspondent Shin Se-min reports.
From the Czech Republic to Argentina and then to New Zealand, President Moon Jae-in is back in Seoul following his final overseas trip of the year. Though his trip included attending the G20 summit in Buenos Aires, where the world's big players discuss building consensus for sustainable development, the sideline diplomacy between the leaders of South Korea and the U.S. grabbed most of the headlines. President Moon, after meeting with U.S. President Donald Trump, said the possibility of a reciprocal visit to Seoul by North Korea's Kim Jong-un this year is still on the cards.
김정은 위원장의 서울 답방이 지금 북미 간의 비핵화 대화에 대해서도 아주 긍정적인 역할을 하는 모멘텀이 될 것이다는 점에 트럼프 대통령과 사이에 같은 인식을 했고요.
In other words, Kim's visit does not necessarily have to line up with the upcoming second summit between Kim and Trump. President Moon said his encounter with President Trump was an opportunity to reaffirm their ironclad alliance and ties and lift a cloud of speculation that Seoul and Washington are not completely in tune when it comes to North Korea.
미국과 무력함 이런 이야기는 제가 생각할 때 그냥 별로 근거 없는 추측성의 이야기가 아닐까 그렇게 생각합니다.
Apart from the sideline meetings at the G20 summit, President Moon also shared with the world his vision of creating an inclusive and people-centered society. In Prague, President Moon discussed the prospects of South Korea landing a deal to build a nuclear power plant in the Eastern European country with the Czech Prime Minister. And during his stay in New Zealand, the South Korean leader sought ways to strengthen Seoul's ties with Wellington. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Stocks on Wall Street fell sharply on Tuesday after President Trump threatened more duties on China if trade talks fall through. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn, as we like to do, to our No Adam. So Adam, President Trump took to Twitter calling himself something we haven't heard from him before, a tariff man.
Yes, Mark, it is quite the label, and it comes just days after the 90-day truce in the US-China trade war was agreed at the G20 summit. President Trump's tweet said investors concerned on whether that ceasefire will actually take place on the scheduled January 1st. All major US stock indices dropped more than 3%, a sharp fall after Wall Street rallied on Monday on news of that ceasefire. President Trump wrote that negotiations with China have already started, saying he hopes for what he called a real deal, but it seems he wants quicker action from Beijing. In his tweet, Trump wrote that China was supposed to start buying American agricultural products and more immediately. The US president's threat marks a dramatic shift in tone from when he brokered that truce with his Chinese counterpart in Argentina. His Tariff Man declaration also contradicts assertions made by the White House that Trump actually preferred a deal rather than tariffs. Meanwhile, Beijing's silence on the trade truce has also left investors a bit jittery. President Trump had hailed the pause as an incredible deal, saying China had promised a number of measures. However, Beijing's foreign ministry has repeatedly referred related questions to the country's commerce ministry, which has yet to say anything. British Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit plans are off to a bad start in the House of Commons, with her government being found in contempt of Parliament for the first time ever. This came after the government refused to publish the full legal advice underpinning its Brexit plan. MPs voted on a motion demanding full disclosure, and London has now committed to publishing that legal advice on Wednesday. MPs also backed calls for the Commons to have a direct say in Brexit proceedings if Prime Minister May's proposal is rejected after a week of debates. Meanwhile, in a boost to campaigners who want the UK to remain in the EU, a top European law officer says the British government should be able to unilaterally cancel its withdrawal from the bloc. In an opinion prepared for the European Court of Justice, Advocate General Campos Sanchez Bordona notes that a country wishing to leave the EU also has the power to change its mind during the two-year exit process specified in Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty. He added that the country should be able to do so without the consent of the other 27 EU member states. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani has again threatened to close a key passageway for oil trade if the US blocks oil exports. The Strait of Hormuz is the waterway for nearly a third of all oil traded by sea. Rouhani has threatened to close the sea lane several times before, but he is yet to follow up on those threats. The Trump administration restored sanctions on Iran's energy industry to try and pressure Tehran to give up its nuclear and missile tests. The US representative for Iran policy, Brian Hook, dismissed Rouhani's threat, noting that Iran does not control the strait.
Now, the South Korean government is lifting previously imposed access restrictions to vast areas of the country amid the downturn in tensions between the two Koreas. The zones had been previously designated as so-called protection zones, fenced off for military purposes. Our Defence Ministry correspondent Park Ji-won with the details.
Seoul's Ministry of National Defense has announced that it's lifting restrictions on nearly 340 million square meters of land in the country. That's equivalent to almost 120 times the size of Yeouido, Seoul's financial district. The zones are mostly located within 25 kilometers of the military demarcation line, which divides South and North Korea. The areas were previously designated as protection zones for military purposes. Some of the areas that had restrictions lifted are now located near the border, but are zones near major military facilities across the country. The ministry says the move was carefully thought out beforehand and will not affect South Korea's military combat readiness or its defense posture. With the decision, about 8.4% of the country's administrative land remains designated as restricted or controlled area for military purposes. Before the ministry's move, the figure was about 8.8%. The South Korean government approved the Protection of Military Bases and Installations Act in 1972 to facilitate military operations and has since revised the scope of areas designated as restricted or controlled. The Defense Ministry also says it will make access procedures simpler for those who enter regions beyond the civilian control line, which is 10 kilometers from the military demarcation line. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign exchange reserves edged up in November to $402.9 billion. The Bank of Korea says the country's reserves went up by $240 million on month due to the weaker greenback, which in turn raised the value of the BOK's assets in other currencies. As of the end of October, South Korea had the world's 8th largest FX reserves, with China topping the list. South Korea's central bank has released its revised data on the country's third quarter GDP growth. No real surprises to be found. It was more or less in line with the Bank of Korea's forward guidance. Kim Hae-sung with the details.
South Korea's economy grew by 0.6% on quarter during the July to September period, on par with its second quarter growth rate.
The third quarter growth figure is in line with our estimate in October. While facilities investment were revised up, construction investment and private consumption were revised down.
Although facilities investment was 0.3 percentage points higher than the earlier estimate, it still tumbled 4.4% in the third quarter, led by reduced investment in machinery. Construction investment fell nearly 7%, with decreases in both building construction and civil engineering. Private consumption increased by 0.5 percentage point, mainly on higher spending on non-durable goods. Government spending expanded by 1.5% on healthcare expenditures.
Exports continue to drive economic growth. Facilities and construction investment are both falling sharply. But with semiconductor goods exports set to slow down and domestic consumption expected to be sluggish, economic outlook is pretty gloomy.
On an on-year basis, South Korea's GDP expanded 2% in the third quarter, slower than the 2.8% growth seen in the second quarter. It's also the lowest figure in 9 years, which the Bank of Korea pointed to shorter working days as Chuseok holidays fell in September this year, and a base effect as GDP grew near 4% in the third quarter of 2017. Real gross national income expanded by 0.7% on quarter. The BOK says to reach its growth target of 2.7% for 2018, the local economy has to expand by more than 0.84% in the last quarter. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Now, Fiat Chrysler Automobiles Korea could face criminal charges after it was found to have sold vehicles with tampered gas emission systems. The Ministry of Environment said it had found FCA Korea had tampered with the exhaust systems on 1,600 Jeep Renegade vehicles sold from March 2015 to July 2016, and on 800 Fiat 500X vehicles sold from April 2015 to June 2017. The government has decided to cancel certification for the sale of these vehicles and could impose a penalty of $3 million and bring criminal charges against the auto unit. The popularity of South Korean music, film, TV shows, games and animated content is exploding around the world right now. Last year, the industry's revenues topped $100 billion, almost on par with that of memory chips, which are the country's key export item. An annual event was held right here in Seoul on Tuesday to recognize those who have contributed to the massive success. Our Hwan Jung-hwan takes us to the Korea Content Awards.
Organized by the Korea Creative Content Agency and the Ministry of Culture, this annual award ceremony is dedicated to local content creators, commemorating their achievements and hard work. In this year's event, which marks its 10th anniversary, 32 people received awards in 5 categories, including cartoons, animation, excellence in broadcasting, and performance in foreign markets. And among the people who received the Presidential Commendation Award, the highest honor at the event, 2 individuals were singled out for praise for their contributions to overseas market expansion. Kim Chang-an, the CEO of game developer PUBG, which created the smash hit first-person shooter Battleground, received the award for the game's remarkable export growth to global markets.
It's a great honor to have been recognized that Battleground, a game made in Korea, is contributing to promote Korea's content industry overseas.
Since the game's release last year, the company has received critical acclaim, and a thriving player community has emerged all around the world, with more than 400 million players worldwide. Battleground has set 7 Guinness World Records and won multiple game awards. Aside from Korean content targeting adults, children's entertainment company Ping Pong was also awarded in recognition of its contribution in promoting Korean culture abroad.
I've learned a lot of things from watching children come together through Pinkfong. First, that Korean content can meld into global platforms, and second, that content providers should take responsibility for influencing young children.
Pinkfong's videos have been among the most popular content on YouTube for children and their parents, accumulating over 1.5 billion views worldwide. With its content available in 6 languages, Pinkfong's YouTube channel has more than 13 million subscribers. With more and more fans across the globe on the lookout for new Korean content, Hallyu or K-culture is picking up momentum across a wide spectrum of industries, consumed by everyone from young children to adults. And it is clear that the industry will continue to grow and hone its global competitive edge through the passion and talent of creative developers. 원정환, 아리랑 뉴스.
Now, December is one of the best months to enjoy the performing arts in Seoul. There are a variety of shows ready to delight and dazzle audiences in the South Korean capital. Our Yoon Jong-min gives us a sneak peek of what's to come at this winter seasons and the standout events.
Christmas season approaches and a variety of stage performances are primed to mesmerize audiences in the month of December at the Seoul Art Center. The Korea National Opera will showcase Italian composer Giacomo Puccini's masterpiece La Bohème from December 6th to 9th. The opera is adapted from the novel Scenes de la vie de Bohème by French novelist Henri Murger in 1851. Centered on the 2 heroes, Rodolfo and Mimi, the opera portrays the love, dream, and tragedy of young artists in the 19th century Paris over the course of 4 acts. With the orchestra being led by Korean female conductor Song Si-yeon, the drama unfolds with a sentimental melody and the beautiful voices of sopranos and tenors.
The story in La Bohème happens during the winter, especially on Christmas Eve. The Christmas season is also coming up, and it's getting all of us excited. La Bohème really is a piece to enjoy during winter.
Bohème, I think, is one of the most beautiful Puccini's operas and maybe one of the most moving opera in the world. And Bohème is so close to us because it's about youth, it's about love, it's about death, it's about us.
Another show coming up this month is a ballet performance, The Nutcracker, based on a story by German author E.T.A. Hoffmann and music by Russian composer Pyotr Tchaikovsky. The 2-act ballet portrays the adventure of a young protagonist on Christmas Eve. The Korean National Ballet invites those who wish to enjoy romantic music and delicate performances from December 15th to 25th at the Seoul Art Center. Yoon Jong-min, Arirang News.
Good morning. There's been a huge drop in temperatures in the central parts of the country, including here in the capital, with the season's first cold wave advisory being in place. And strong gusts will only add to the cold weather, so bundle up tight. Daily highs will be nearly 8 degrees Celsius lower than yesterday. Daily highs in the central regions will be hovering in the mid-single digits, so you might want to have a cup of hot tea with you all day to keep warm. Seoul will get up to 4 degrees Celsius, while Busan, Jeju, and Gyeongju should have bearable temperatures in the double digits this afternoon. But despite the freezing temperatures, we can at least appreciate the clean air quality. Stay bundled up. The cold snap will get even more intense starting Friday. It's going to hit its peak this weekend with lows plunging to -10 degrees Celsius by Saturday morning. That's Korea for you, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. Do stay tuned to us on Arirang TV, and we'll have our next newscast coming up at noon Korea time with our very own Lee Jae-in. So until then, goodbye.